With the draft only a few nights away, our mock draft is now finally out there and done. We thought it was time to take some questions from the viewers and just answer anything that we maybe have not covered off in our past few videos. So we've taken about 5 or 6 questions from the tweet we put out the other day, and we'll start to answer those for you right now. So starting off with David Mills first up. Thank you, David, for sending this one through. David wants to know the likelihood of trading for pick 2 with North Melbourne. He doesn't seem to think the value is there. I tend to agree with you, David. I suppose the question is essentially, do we think that the player that we're going to get at pick 6 is going to be far worse than what we might get at pick 2, which is probably going to be Finn O'Sullivan, on the assumption we take Lawler with 1. I just don't think that it's that big of a gap, and I don't think the club think that either. So from the bits and pieces that we know from people in and around the traps, that Blair Hartley's phone has apparently been ringing non-stop this past week from all clubs, not just North Melbourne, but all clubs, trying to strike up deals. And he has essentially switched his phone off and not taken any phone calls because his view is that if clubs become more desperate on draft night, they might cough up a bit more than what they want to. So like we've said all along, that the only way that we will deal for pick 2 is if the deal favours us. And I know North Melbourne fans won't like that, and I understand that. I truly do. They're going to want pick 6 to be involved. As a club, Richmond have said pick 6 won't be involved, nor will pick 24. So they'd be looking at least either 10 or 11, one of those 2 picks, along with 18 or 20, something like that, would be about what we'd be prepared to offer to get pick 2. And look, rightfully, if you're a North supporter or North Melbourne Football Club, you're probably going to decline that. So I understand that. It just comes down to how desperate North maybe get on the night to split that pick, because even though in our mock draft we said they might take Finn O'Sullivan, if they are still desperate for Teru, it's such a big reach at 2 to take him. So they still may need to split it, and I don't know if many other clubs have got the position to be able to do it. So I reckon, I don't think it'll happen, but if it does, it'll be a very last minute thing on the night, and I think we can all be rest assured, David, that if it does happen, it'll be to our favour, which I assume would include a future first round pick from North if it was to eventuate. But I tend to agree with you. I don't think the value's there, and I don't think it'll take place. But good to know we've got options. Second question has come through from Tigerland Terra. Why is nearly everyone overlooking Jagga Smith for the number 1 pick? Surely one takes the best available player at each available pick. Very good question, Tigerland. And as we all know, Jagga had been touted as the number 1 pick for large chunks of the year. And even on the Rookie Me page, he was their number 1 player for bulk of the year, even as late as September, October. Finds a ton of the ball, obviously put up some really good numbers in our VFL as well. And it's an interesting thing because I feel like that a Jagga player type, I feel like you can find someone like him in most drafts. An accumulator, neat by hand and foot, bit of pace. But I don't want this to sound disparaging because it's not meant to be, but when you compare him to like an explosive game-breaking type like a Lawler, you can probably almost say that Jag is a bit more of a vanilla safe pick. And maybe safe picks are what some people want to do for pick number 1. I can understand that thought process as well. But I just think it's because the ceiling for someone like Lawler is far greater than what the ceiling for Jagga is. Like with Jagga, you know what you're going to get week in, week out, which again can also be a good thing. But yeah, I just think you would find that you can find a Jagga type player in most drafts at that pick. So say if we get some top end picks next year as well, which is probably likely, I would assume there's a player of similar ilk to Jagga there as well. Whereas a Lawler type who can break a game open, like a Petrarca or a Dusty, they don't come around too often, but I suppose the question mark is, will he hit that ceiling? So it's a little, I understand there's probably a slight risk in that sense. I don't buy into the talk about Jagga not being spoken about at 1 because of his body size. I think that's complete rubbish because he handled himself extremely well in our VFL games, and I know AFL is a bigger step up to VFL, but at a minimum it showed he can handle it against the adult and grown matured bodies, and he was still finding the ball 28 to 30 times a game there. So that's not an issue for me. I just think it's more about you can find more Jaggers than you can Lawlers. I think it's as simple as that. Next question we got through is from Tex Holman. Any chance Langford's still at 6? Now this is an interesting one because Langford being at 6, I think, depends largely on what happens with pick 2. So pick 2 holds a lot of weight in this draft. If North Melbourne take Finn O'Sullivan at pick 2, I feel like Harvey Langford will go at pick 5 to Melbourne before he would get to 6. If North Melbourne take Teru at number 2, there's a very good chance that Harvey Langford could still be available at pick 6. However, a lot of the reports indicate that Josh Smiley is our target for pick 6. I believe he does have pre-existing connections with Blair Hartley as well. And it sounds like the club, from what everyone's been hearing, is that they're more into Smiley than to Harvey Langford. But there's definitely an argument to be made that Harvey Langford could be a bit more of a damaging player by foot, stronger mark, both big units. But yeah, I think the only way he will still be there as a selection chance at 6 is if Teru is taken at 2. If North go the midfielder at number 2, you can pretty much almost guarantee that he'll be off the board by 6. But stranger things have happened. Some people have said he might be the big slider in the draft, but I just don't. He's just too talented to be that big of a slider, I reckon. But it'll be interesting to see how it plays out on Wednesday night for Langford. And the final question we've got through for tonight is from Damien Beale. How do we go about picking up Sam Davidson? Would love him on our list for next season. Sam Davidson obviously being the player who was on our VFL list, who had a really good second half of the year and put his name up into calculations to be selected. The thing was, I know, and I was probably one of them, was a bit bummed that we didn't take him in the mid-season draft. But reality is that his form actually probably didn't start clicking into gear and picking up until after that point in time. So taking him before that happened probably wasn't warranted, which is why it never took place. But I'm not totally sure if he's nominated for the national draft. But the only way I see him getting to Richmond next year is, let's say he has nominated for the national draft, it would require every club to overlook him and not pick him. And then we would obviously get first pick in the rookie draft, which is where I would assume we would try and take him pick number 1 there. But I feel like I would be gobsmacked if all clubs overlooked him in the national draft. Like, we're talking about 80 to 90 picks might occur, and his form was pretty solid in that back half of the year. I'd be shocked if no one took a gamble on him. But if they don't, and he's still there for the rookie draft, I would be really disappointed if we didn't take him pick 1 in the rookie draft. But yeah, that's the only way I can see us getting Sam Davidson. It'd be a ripper to have, though. I agree with you, Damon. I totally agree. We do also have a hot take as well, which is from Anthony. We'll go through this one too. I think that Taj Houghton, either at 10 or 11, is critical. He is a bums-on-seat type player that will bring fans to the footy. Considering we have lost so much X-Factor, we need players like him to get the fan base excited about going to the footy. I agree that I would be totally all for the club taking a punt on Taj Houghton. Is 10 or 11 too high? I'm not too sure. It depends on probably who you pick in those 3 picks prior, I guess. You know, it's an ACL injury, so he's not going to play for at least half the year. But like we sort of have said a few times, ACL injury recovery-wise aren't what they used to be. We're seeing it being a lot more progressive, a lot more neater and cleaner coming back from him. So that part I don't hold too much fear about. And based on pure talent alone, Taj Houghton was definitely a top 10 talent. Do you try and chance it that he might be there at 18? Do you try and, load up on other players on 10 and 11 and get him at 18? Maybe. I've got a funny feeling he'll be gone by then. So to your point, it might have to be a 10 or 11 to do it. I wouldn't be against it. I know there might be a lot of people that will be. And in terms of being bums on seats, he'll definitely bring all of that. I think, though, just having a young brigade of players out there playing a nice game style, we want to see a game style, a game plan, and just getting games into the young kids. I think that should be enough to get some bums on seats as well, hopefully. But I definitely agree that his X factor and energy will definitely be. There'll definitely be some good highlight reels of Taj Houghton, I think, by the end of his career. So I totally agree with you. A huge thanks again to everybody who sent through some questions and hot takes for tonight. Much appreciated. I hope those answers helped. And we will see you all on Monday night and then again on draft night. Go Tigers.